everybody can be creative in some kind of form. And the problem is that so many people just go, oh, I can't draw, I can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. You know, I can't draw a stick man, that comes up all of the time. You know, and that's not what it's about. It's not about being good at art. It's never about being good at art. Because if you feel good in yourself, it doesn't matter what your art looks like. Whatever you create, you're going to love. You know, whatever I create, I have loved. From that first dog that I did to the latest black Labrador in a blue hat that I'm drawing at the moment. I've loved every single one of them. I have loved because of how it's made me feel when I was doing it. That's the point.
For years, I was caught up in my job, my marriage, and keeping everyone else afloat. I forgot what made me me. Then I picked up a coloured pencil and remembered how much I used to love drawing. That moment showed me that creativity could be a portal freeing up space in my mind, space that wasn't filled with stress or worry. And in that space came a reset. I started to build new habits and little rituals. I realised I mattered too. I began creating time for myself, putting myself first instead of always last. That was the start of my creative comeback. And bit by bit, life lit up again. That's what living in full colour really is, having the courage to put yourself back in the picture, to feel brighter, braver and more alive. And that's what this podcast is here for, to help you find your spark and live in full colour too.
So today I want to be a little bit frivolous today and talk about something that has changed my life. It's changed my life. I want to talk about creativity. Oh, my voice is going. I want to talk about creativity. And I want to talk about creativity in any form. So for me, it's drawing, coloured pencils. And also actually a little bit of painting. Quite like a little bit of painting. You know, I like, but with me it's abstract painting that I quite like. I don't do it very often, and it tends to be sort of like within a retreat type thing. But that has an enormous effect on me. So I want to talk about how creativity heals, and not in a. I don't want to get really deep and all of that kind of stuff and go into psychology and all of that kind of thing. But there is an element of that in there. But you know my story. You know that you know I was kind of in an unhappy marriage, an unhappy job. I wanted something that was going to help me get out of my head, and I chose coloured pencils with colouring books. That's what I chose, and I had no idea and I had no illusions of what it was going to do, other than it was just going to help, with the, what was going on in my head. And actually, even now, I think back on it, and I'm astounded. I'm astounded at what it did. And when I listen to other people's stories, I'm always, amazed at what creativity does. In any kind of form. I'm amazed at what it does. Why isn't my? It's really weird. Sorry, I'm just looking at my computer and it's staying open, and I don't quite know why, because normally it shuts down. Anyway, I digress. I've had a little bit of a shifty around as well, but I'm absolutely amazed at what creativity does to our brains. And I need to do more thought and research, I think, into this, like proper research into this, because it's profound what it does. It really is profound, and I don't think people really quite realise the profoundness of it. And also, I don't think people realise, I think a lot of people realise, but I think some people don't realise why I do what I do. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about why I do what I do, because I think it's really important to get that message out there, because I think there's some misunderstanding with some people, which I kind of want to, you know, just explain. So I teach people to use coloured pencils. That's what I do. And I teach them to use coloured pencils because I want them to feel like I feel. I want them to feel that release. I want them to feel the feeling of letting go in your head, of letting go of the anxiety, the stress, letting go of all of the crap that's in your head, and how it allows you to fill your head with better stuff. That's ultimately why I do what I do, because that's what it did for me, and I want to give that back. As well as that, I also want to help people with their mindset and their confidence. And funnily enough, what happens when you start being creative, your mindset gets better if you allow it to, and your confidence can grow as you develop your work. And there's all sorts of things that kind of have to, kind of swirl around and become. What I don't do, which I have to say, I'm a little bit disappointed that somebody has been sort of saying that this is what I do. I don't teach people to make a living from their art. That's not what I do at all. I've never advertised that that's what I do. There are definitely people who come through my through my membership who want to do that, and certainly I have the business knowledge to be able to help them with that if they want it. But ultimately what I do is to help people be creative again, because I know how it feels. Okay. I don't have any courses for teaching people how to make money. But I do have courses in teaching people how to be more confident, and how to help with their mindset, and how to draw. So, I just felt that was really important to put that out there, because it's very much part of my whole being and my whole identity, I think, is that I want to share what creativity has done for me. And that is, it's made me a whole person again, which is, it's quite a big thing to say, but it has. It's brought me back to who I am. And for me, it's drawing, it's colour pencils. But, for somebody else, it might be painting. For somebody else, it might be pastels. For somebody else, it might be dancing. For somebody else, it might be crochet. For somebody else, it might be knitting. For somebody else, it might be, you're an author, you're writing. You might write poetry. You might write song lyrics. You might write a novel. You might write self-help books. You might play a musical instrument. All of these things are creative. You might make frames for people, creative. You might be an interior designer. You might be a flower arranger. You might be a chef. All of these things are creative. And all of these things mean that we're kind of doing things with our hands, which leaves our mind free of all of the crap, all of the everyday worry and stress and everything that we have. And that's why creativity is so important, because it allows us to disappear into somewhere else. I don't know where. I don't know where I go when I draw. I certainly disappear. We go into that flow. There's a whole book about flow, but we go into we go into flow, and that's when you just you just lose all of the stress and the worry. And the more you do it, the more you lose the stress and the worry, and the more you enable those little tiny crevices and spaces in your brain to be filled with better things. And that's what's happened to me. That's what happened to me when I became creative. And it's opened the door to all sorts of other things, because my confidence has grown, my self-belief has grown, my love of me has grown. So then all of a sudden I'm wanting to do these other things, you know. I start teaching, I start, you know, becoming a business owner, I start traveling more. You know, I've never been somebody who wanted to travel ever. And with this new sort of found love of creativity and how that has sort of filled my head with all of these other really good things, I'm finding I'm meeting new people, which has been incredible. You know, meeting people all over the world, meeting these incredibly amazing people who have their own fantastic stories that, you know, sharing with me, and I'm learning more about them, I'm learning more about what they do, I'm learning more about their worlds, and you know, they're helping me learn more about my world. And you know, these amazing adventures that I've been going on, the travel that I've been going on, becoming so confident in who I am that I now I'm really comfortable traveling on my own. And there's a little thing that might seem like it's really little and not significant at all. But for me, when I go away on my own, I'll actually make a dinner reservation and go out for dinner on my own. And I've got a friend who does this, and I've always been in awe of her. And I'm like, oh my God, she's gone, you know, she must be so brave going for dinner on her own. Now I'm doing it, and I'm loving it. I don't have to make conversation with anybody. I can be on my phone if I want. I can take my book. I can eat at the speed that I want to eat. I can eat what I want to eat. I can choose to, you know, I can choose what I want to choose. I can listen in on other people's conversations. You know, it's one of the most freeing things is going out to dinner on your own. I, I'm just like, I love it. I absolutely love it. Where's that come from? I would never have done that. Never in a month of Sundays would I have done that. I'd be sat in my hotel room. I'd have either bought something in, I'd have got a delivery or something, or I'd have got room service. And I would no way have gone out and had a meal on my own ever in a month of Sundays. And now I can't flip and wait, you know. And I'm just like, why was I so worried about eating on my own or being sick? And is it because people are like, oh, look at that poor woman eating on her own? But now, because of all of the work that I've done, and the work that I've done that has come through creativity, I couldn't give a toss what other people think. You know, somebody's looking at me going, oh, that poor woman sitting there eating on her own. I'm actually going, oh my God, that poor couple sitting there not actually saying anything to each other or having some like real mundane conversation. And here's me completely enjoying my food and reading my book and having the most lovely time. You know, I couldn't give a stuff about what people think. And that has been a revelation to me. And that has come through creativity, would you believe? That has become through, you know, and all of the things that, for me, that creativity has healed. It was the instigator. It was the door that opened to me then having therapy. And I'm not saying everybody has to have therapy, but certainly it's been one of the best things that I've ever done. Therapy for me has been in the form of coaching, NLP, parts therapy, and like just normal coaching. It's had a huge impact on me, an enormous impact on me. You know, I'm not. I don't want to go back and relive stuff. And I think there are some therapies that I'm not necessarily in 100% agreement with. And I've seen some people go through those therapies and come out the other side even more broken than when they went in. And that's why I choose coaching, because it's forward thinking, it's looking forwards. You've got to kind of address things and you've got to address feelings, and it's not about sweeping everything under the carpet. But that's what I want. I want to be looking forward whilst healing what's happened in the past. And the NLP again has been really helpful for me. really helpful. You know, I have lots of little ritually things that are based in NLP. I've done. I'm actually an NLP master coach. Not that I use it or you know whatever, but I've been through all of the training and everything, and used ethically. NLP is a hugely beneficial practice. Used unethically is not. You know, so if somebody uses NLP on you and they haven't told you that you're going to be using NLP, that is more manipulative than anything else. So, you know, you need to be with an ethical coach. But it's been immensely beneficial to me. You know, and it's creativity. It's creativity that opened the door to that. It's creativity that allowed me to meet the person who ended up being my coach. You know, she came on a recommendation from a consultant that I was working with, who was helping me with some marketing stuff. And if I hadn't started my creativity, I don't think I would have ever met her, you know. And she was definitely somebody who has been an enormous help in me overcoming everything over the last few years. It's amazing. And then again, being recommended somebody from a friend who I've got to know through my creativity, through then building a business through creativity, becoming best friends with gorgeous Michelle, and her then, you know, recommending my parts therapist. Incredible, amazing. Meeting gorgeous Cherie and being in her amazing siren group. I would never have met her if I hadn't have met Nick, who was through the mastermind, who I met because I was running a business, because of my creativity. You know, all of these things have come through creativity. And yes, you can say, well, it was a coincidence and you might have met somebody different and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't. I met them and it was through creativity, you know. So creativity has opened this huge portal for me, and it's still opening the doors in different places. And it's brought me back to me. And that is amazing. You know, it's healed so many different elements of me that I didn't even know needed healing. You know, and if this is something that I feel really passionate about, and why I do what I do. And that's why I said at the beginning that, you know, I need to tell you why I do this. Everybody can be creative in some kind of form. And the problem is that so many people just go, oh, I can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. You know, I can't draw a stick man. That comes up all of the time, you know, and that's not what it's about. It's not about being good at art. It's never about being good at art. Because if you feel good in yourself, it doesn't matter what your art looks like. Whatever you create, you're going to love. You know, whatever I create, I've loved. From that first dog that I did to the latest black Labrador in a blue hat that I'm drawing at the moment. I've loved every single one of them. I have loved because of how it's made me feel when I was doing it. That's the point. That is the bloody point. That is the bloody point. It's not about how good you are, you know, or how amazing the end piece is. It's nothing to do with that. It's a lovely outcome. It's something that happens through the course of being creative, you know, when you're drawing. But it's not. That's not why. That's not the why. The why is the process. The why is how it makes me feel. The why is, you know, quietening my brain. That's the why. And so anybody can have that. Anybody. You know, and it's what you choose to do, whether you choose that you're going to do, I don't know, make model airplanes, Warhammer painting, for example. You know, my dad used to make things out of matchsticks, Lego. I mean, that's being creative. My youngest son, Lego fanatic, and I say to him, oh, you love your Lego? And he's like, yeah, I do. I love my Lego. He said, I just feel so calm when I'm doing it, apart from when the pieces don't jam together. And then I just say, get some glue. But he said, it's because it makes me feel like I disappear. It's a creative thing. It's something that you're doing with your hands. And you can find anything, any way of being creative, whether it's drawing or, painting, whatever, that is going to allow that portal to open. And if you then are open enough to let other things in and be open enough and ready enough for things to change and for allow them to change, because I tell you this for nothing, not every creative person is open to change. And there are some creative people out there who are flipping horrible. So just by being creative doesn't make you an amazing, happy, fabulous person. There are creative people out there who are not fabulous, and who do not fabulous things. So I'm not saying be creative and your whole world changes. You've actually got to be the change in that world. You have to be open enough to be able to reflect, to be able to look at who you are, how you behave, how you come across, all of that kind of stuff. Because there are many people out there who don't have that innate emotional intelligence to be able to understand that, oh, hang on a second, maybe I've not done that particularly well, or whatever, and their behavior isn't particularly great. So creativity isn't going to stop that. It's not going to stop the psychopaths and all of that kind of stuff. But if you are open and you are willing, and you take opportunities as they come to you, opportunities for you to develop yourself and learn more about yourself, the world is your absolute oyster. I mean, it really is. It really is. And those who, sit and complain that others are doing better than them, and they're not doing well, and it's because of this and that and the other, and they're not taking responsibility for themselves. Well, if you start taking responsibility for yourself, and you start, stop blaming other people for things that are going wrong, then again, your world is wide open and you can do whatever you want to do. But it's that responsibility, isn't it? That's a whole different discussion. But creativity is an amazing way of healing all sorts of scars, all sorts of past bits and pieces. And it's definitely the portal into bigger things, bigger and better and more exciting things. There's obviously work to be done on self as well. But yeah, I don't know whether that's triggered anything in you, or helped, or I don't know. But I tend to find I just waffle on, and hopefully somebody will grasp onto something. Anyway, I will see you next time.
That's enough waffling from me. Here's to living in full colour.